Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Ethereum is forming a new pattern in the short term that we need to pay attention to, while Bitcoin is now running into critical support, still technically playing out the short-term bullish divergence. And on top of that, we have some massive Bitcoin news today, which I'll talk about in just a moment, so definitely stick around. First of all, we need to talk about the Bitcoin ETF news today because just yesterday, Grayscale sent another approximately 19,000 Bitcoin worth around $800 million to Coinbase, most likely to really dump that Bitcoin as a lot of people are withdrawing out of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And if you've been watching my videos over the last 1 week or so, you would know about this happening. Obviously, I've been saying a lot of people are most likely going to withdraw their money out of Grayscale because Grayscale's fees are simply too high compared to other Bitcoin ETF fees. For example, the BlackRock fee is a lot lower than the Grayscale fee. And so this is basically resulting in a lot of outflows out of the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF. As you can see right here, thousands of Bitcoin are flowing out of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust over to Coinbase so they can dump that Bitcoin, because the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF is a cash create ETF, which means if you want to take your money out of the Grayscale ETF, they have to pay that out in US dollars. So they have to dump that Bitcoin back in the ETF to pay you out in US dollars. And so essentially, if there's outflows out of the Grayscale ETF, that results in selling pressure for Bitcoin. It results in Bitcoin being sold on the exchanges. But at the same time, if there's inflows going into other Bitcoin ETFs, for example, if this is just people moving their money from Grayscale into another spot Bitcoin ETF, then those other ETF providers, for example, BlackRock, have to buy that Bitcoin to back the ETF. And that is precisely what has been happening. As you can see right here, BlackRock has been accumulating a lot of Bitcoin. And remember, the spot Bitcoin ETFs have only been trading for just 4 days as of right now. In fact, today will be the 5th day of trading for the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And so just in the first 4 days of trading for the spot Bitcoin ETFs, BlackRock's actually accumulated over 25,000 Bitcoin worth over $1 billion for their spot Bitcoin ETF in just 4 days. And so once again, just yesterday, roughly $800 million worth of Bitcoin flowed out of Grayscale, resulting in some selling pressure. But at the same time, a lot of that Bitcoin is ending up over at BlackRock because BlackRock is buying a lot of that Bitcoin for a lot of people moving their money over to the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF. And now, obviously, there's still a lot of Bitcoin sitting in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. In fact, right now, there's roughly 617,000 Bitcoin worth roughly around $26 billion. And so obviously, that's the maximum sell pressure here. If all of that flowed out of Grayscale, that's basically the maximum sell pressure, but realistically, not all of that is going to flow out at once. But basically, that would be the maximum sell pressure. The maximum sell pressure would be $26 billion. But if you're looking at the maximum buying pressure for what BlackRock could buy, obviously BlackRock manages around $9 trillion. That's 9,000 billion, which absolutely dwarfs the amount that Grayscale could possibly sell at the maximum limit. And so ultimately, the sell pressure caused by these spot Bitcoin ETFs, caused mainly by Grayscale, is very limited. It's just looking at the shorter term. But if you're looking at the bigger picture, if you're looking at just the amount of money that BlackRock alone manages, obviously this is massive potential for Bitcoin's long-term future. But as you can see right here on BlackRock's own website, you can see that just in the first 4 days of trading, once again, they've accumulated 25,067 Bitcoin, approximately worth well over $1 billion. And so at this rate, if they're accumulating $1 billion worth of Bitcoin every 4 days, obviously this can quickly add up to a significant amount of Bitcoin that BlackRock could be holding. And remember, in only 3 months from now, we have a Bitcoin halving, resulting in even less Bitcoin coming onto the market, coming onto exchanges. And so with a big player like BlackRock buying up all of that Bitcoin, obviously in just a few months, perhaps later this year, we could see much higher Bitcoin prices despite what's happening just in the short term. But anyway, getting into the Bitcoin charts here on the weekly time frame, we can still see that strong rejection from the golden pocket area of resistance sitting in between around 48,000 to 50,000. And so once again, as I said, even before we saw that perfect rejection, that is still the significant area of resistance to pay attention to on the weekly time frame. But essentially, the moment we see a confirmed breakout above that golden pocket, which means at least a weekly candle close above $50,000, basically not long after that, we could quickly see the price return up towards all-time highs once we first see a confirmed breakout above 50,000. But obviously, just in the short term, at the moment, we're in a bit of a short-term correction during this much larger bullish trend here on the weekly time frame. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, obviously this bearish divergence is still active and playing out, resulting in most likely some choppy sideways sideways price action, if not a pullback in the price of Bitcoin as the most common outcomes from a bearish divergence. And so obviously so far we have already seen a pullback from the local highs, and I do continue to expect this type of price action, basically not really much bullish momentum and instead an increased amount of bearish momentum, at least just in the short term here. And especially if we're looking at the DXY, also known as the US dollar index, of course, this is continuing the bounce in the short term, which is a warning signal for Bitcoin and crypto, because as we can see previously, when the DXY experiences a significant bounce back to the upside and basically a bullish trend on the daily time frame, obviously this usually results in a bearish trend for Bitcoin and crypto. But remember, when I'm talking about the trends on the daily time frame, these are sort of the shorter term trends that can last for around 1 to 2 months. Usually, obviously, this bullish trend on the daily time frame has lasted a lot longer. But ultimately, if you zoom out to the weekly time frame, those short-term bullish and bearish trends are occurring within the much larger bullish trend on the weekly chart that has been the case ever since the beginning of 2023. So it's important to understand the difference between the different time frames. Once again, on the weekly time frame, we've been bullish non-stop on the trend this entire time for well over a year. But during this larger bullish trend here in the somewhat shorter term trends on the daily time frame, obviously we've seen multiple bullish and bearish trends over the last 1 year or so. And so basically, if we continue to see this bounce in the DXY above this high in the DXY right here, then that would result in a bullish trend reversal in the DXY. That would be a bullish signal for the DXY, which would be a bearish trend reversal signal for Bitcoin here on the daily time frame. And while we're on the daily Bitcoin chart, taking a look at this ascending line of support, which is sitting at around $40,000. So basically, if we see a further pullback in the price of Bitcoin, I would expect support around that level. And as for shorter term resistance, we're currently finding resistance around this center line right here for the ascending parallel channel, and that's sitting at around 43.6K. And obviously above that center line, we also have this line of resistance, which is currently sitting at just above $48,000. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour time frame, technically speaking, this short-term bullish divergence just on the 4-hour chart is still currently active. And so once again, this bullish divergence means we're due to see a slight bullish relief or at least some choppy sideways price action just in the shorter term here. And obviously over the last few days or so, this has been playing out exactly as expected. We've seen that slight bullish relief from this local low and a lot of choppy sideways price action over the last couple of days. But basically, if we start to see a breakdown either into a new lower low in the price, or if we see a breakdown in the RSI below this ascending line of support right here, then that would invalidate this short-term bullish divergence. And obviously, with this being on the 4-hour time frame, these short-term bullish divergences play out a lot faster than the larger bullish divergences or bearish divergences here on the daily time frame. And so ultimately, I continue to expect the bearish divergence on the daily time frame to play out at least over the next 1 to 2 weeks or so, whereas this short-term bullish divergence just on the 4-hour time frame could possibly play out over the next 1 to 2 days, but honestly, I don't expect this to play out much longer. And as for short-term support, we're currently running into this area of support sitting in between around 42.4K to 42.7K. But if we see a confirmed break back below around 42.4K, then in that case, our next support is sitting at around 41.7K. And below that, we also have this area of support sitting in between around 40,500 to 41K. And as for short-term resistance, we're currently finding some short-term resistance right here at around 43.3K. And above that, we also have this area of resistance sitting in between around 44.3K to 44.7K. And if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin, whether we're bullish or bearish, you can use longs or shorts to make money if the price is bullish or bearish. And personally, I take these trades over on Bybit, so I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link down below this video to make a Bybit account, you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there is also Bitflex, which is another crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but you don't need KYC for Bitflex. And so I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bitflex in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link to make a Bitflex account and deposit $100 worth of crypto or more and to make one trade over on Bitflex, then you can get 10 USDT completely for free. And so if you're trading crypto anyway, or if you're preparing to take the next trade, you might as well get set up or ready to go on one of those exchanges using those links down below this video if you want to get those extra bonuses. But anyway, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and right now we have a lot more liquidity to the downside compared to the upside. Because first of all, we do have that liquidation area, that level of liquidity sitting at around 43.1k to 43.2k, and so that is a little bit of liquidity to the upside, but ultimately, once again, we have more liquidity to the downside. First of all, we have a liquidity zone at around 42.2k, and we also have more liquidity at around 41.9k, and more liquidity at around 41.8k. And so basically what this means for the price of Bitcoin is that it's very likely that just in the short term, sometime soon, we're going to see the price of Bitcoin hit some of these lower levels of liquidity, because usually the price of Bitcoin gets attracted towards where there's most liquidity. And now obviously that's not a 100% guarantee. There's no such thing as a 100% guarantee. But of course, this is just talking about the most likely scenario, talking about the short term here. But anyway, getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily time frame, and right now the bearish divergence is still currently active and playing out. Because obviously we have confirmed higher highs in the price and confirmed lower highs in the RSI, which means once again we still have that bearish divergence, which is resulting in some choppy sideways price action and a slight pullback from the local high, which is actually playing out as expected. And I do continue to expect this type of price action moving forwards, potentially over the next 1 to 2 weeks, as the most likely outcome from a bearish divergence on the daily time frame. But if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour time frame, obviously over the last 1 day, we have seen a bit of a short-term rejection from some local resistance, which is sitting at around 25.90, which I talked about in my last video. And as for short-term support, we're currently running into a bit of short-term support right here at around 25.10, but below that level, we have some more support right here, which is sitting at around 24.60. And in a more bearish scenario, if we actually broke below 24.60 with confirmation, then in that case, we have this area of support sitting in between around 23.80 to 24.10. But ultimately, just in the short term, at the moment, we're basically lacking momentum. The price oscillators, for example, the RSI, is basically chopping around sideways in the short term, showing a lack in momentum to really either direction. And once again, this is ultimately a result of that bearish divergence on the daily time frame, which means we're due to see reduced bullish momentum. But while the price of ETH is basically chopping around in the short term, obviously at the moment we are potentially forming an inverse head and shoulders pattern. And now obviously at the moment this pattern is not yet confirmed at all. It's just one to potentially look out for, because at the moment we have formed a possible left shoulder, a head, and right now we're possibly forming a right shoulder. But what we still need to see in order to confirm this pattern right here is basically a bounce very soon in the price of ETH over the next 1 to 2 days or so, up towards this line of resistance, once again sitting at around 25.90. And then after completing that right shoulder, we will then need to see a confirmed breakout above that neckline, above 25.90, in order to confirm the inverse head and shoulders pattern and confirm a bullish price target. And in that case, if we do actually see a bounce very soon in the price of ETH and a breakout above 25.90, then that will set up a bullish price target sitting close to 2.7k, right around this local high. And so from the point of the breakout to that price target, we're talking around a 4 to 5% move to the upside. But remember, as of right now, that is not yet confirmed at all, because we need to first see a bounce and a breakout above this line, which as of right now, we have not yet seen. And obviously, if the price just continues this short-term pullback below this low right here, which is sitting at around 24.70, then that would basically destroy the chance of this inverse head and shoulders pattern confirming at all. And so at least for now, because this is not confirmed, obviously it's not something to act on at all, but it's just something to pay attention to while it is potentially forming. And if we're taking a quick look at the price of Solana on the 4-hour time frame, right now we're still basically just chopping around sideways, which I've been talking about over the last few days. And once again, you can make a lot of easy profits during choppy sideways price action just like this. And if you want to know how to do that, then watch the video in the bottom left of your screen right now, because that video right there shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. And the video in the top left shows you how you can profit if the price is bullish or bearish using longs and shorts. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next video.